Hi, David. Welcome to this interview, and thank you so much for accepting to be here.
Thank you.
David, would be lovely if we could start a little bit with a background to yourself, and then we'll go into your journey as a supervisor. Do you mind
Mm,
sharing a little bit of that background?
yes. Where do I start?
I know, because it's quite a lot to share, isn't
Well,
it?
it's hard because I started I guess in a way I started as a film editor. So I worked as a film editor for 25 years, a really big part of my life. And during that time, I was also a member of International Rescue Corps, which is an urban search and rescue team. And as a member of the Rescue Corps, I was a trainer, and part of the work that I was doing, kind of unofficially, was coaching. So it was people that were not from a traditional like emergency background, were interested in working in this search and rescue like arena, but didn't really have the kind of experience that other people had who had been paramedics or firefighters or maybe come from the military. So there was a lot of coaching involved, and it was like, and I realized that I was working as a coach, you see. And the same was happening in my job as a film editor. I was training people, but was really interested in coaching them as well. So I was like doing training, but I was also coaching and working on people on their career progression, and which really got me interested in the psychological aspects of work, which then led me to training as a psychotherapist. You see, so I kind of took this really interesting journey, and it was when I was like training as a psychotherapist and started to work more in clinical practice, even as a trainee, realizing that a lot of the coaching work that I had been doing almost unofficially in various roles was something that I could sort of more formalize and actually do as part of my in a part of my work. So I decided to learn more about coaching, do some qualifications, and began to integrate coaching kind of into my psychotherapy work as well. So there was a crossover for me in the modalities that I was using. I could use them in a coaching environment, and I could use them in a therapeutic environment. So I was really interested in taking the things that I was doing unofficially and making them more official and being more professional with them, getting qualifications in them, getting accredited in them. So that's kind of my journey now is that I work full time as a psychotherapist and a coach. I left my job as a film editor, and I just do this now, and then added supervision into that mix.
Mm.
So that's kind of where I am in that journey.
Mhm, mhm. And how did supervision come into your story?
Yeah, it's interesting because in the therapy world, supervision is mandatory, and we have it on a monthly basis, and you might have it anywhere from 1 hour a month up to 3 hours a month, and it depends on your status as a trainee or whether you're qualified and your workload. So I've been in supervision, albeit clinical supervision. I've been in supervision for quite some time. Um, so when I went into a coaching supervision group as a coach, it was really normal. It was like, yeah, I do supervision all the time. It was really normal, and I found that there were a lot of people that kind of, should I be in supervision? Is it worthwhile? For me, it was just a given. It's like, you go to supervision. and it wasn't like you have to go to supervision. It was really useful. So it was. So I joined a supervision group um, with somebody who actually qualified through the ICCS actually, um, and I was a DCS 8, so they were earlier than that. So they must have been on some of the very early cohorts, and it was through that I kind of was encouraged in a way by my supervisor that that I could maybe consider it. And actually, it was that kind of thing. If this course was good enough for them, I'm going to have a look at that course and see what it is. And the course was just amazing, and I thought, oh, I'd like that. So that's what kind of led me. But it was really just through like I had my experience of clinical supervision, and now the coaching supervision as well. It was just like I really feel like I'd like to move in this direction. So I did my coaching supervision before I did my clinical supervision training, and I think it was a really good foundation, for me actually.
Mm. And David, while you were training as a supervisor, were there any defining moments that you would call either interesting or surprising or challenging?
Yeah, I mean, it was a really interesting course in the way that it was set up. So we did have a lot of contact with each other as a group. And I think that's what I liked about it. It was over 6 months, I think. We were in our sort of groups for our, for the coursework, but we were in the reflective practice groups as well on a fairly regular basis. So we saw a lot of each other, and it was I think for me the relational aspect of being in a group again. It took me back to my therapy training days of being in a group and the dynamics that come up in groups. It was really interesting. It was a challenge, but it was a good challenge because it was a group that felt safe enough to work through any processes that were happening.
Mhm.
But also as well, it kind of, I think that in itself helped me in my mindset as an up and coming supervisor about processes and how to really understand my own process, what's kind of going on, my unconscious processes. So I mean, you couldn't write it any better. It was happening right in front of me. My own processes were coming up, and I was trying to be a witness to those processes as part of the course, but as part of my development as well. And thankfully, I say thankfully, I mean, you would hope in a way that we're all on this course and we're all trying to develop it the same way. It was a really supportive place to have those moments of challenges, actually. And I'm grateful to my cohort, my fellow group members, that it was a really good experience. Actually, it wasn't always easy, but it was a good experience, and I learned a lot, which I took into my supervision work. I mean, it was full circle.
Mm. It's a lot of people say, and this was definitely my experience, that I learned almost as much from the group that I trained with as from the course itself
Mm,
and from the trainers and the content. And many people that I speak to who consider training as supervisors do ask and find it important who do they train
mm.
with. Is this your experience as well that you learned from the group? Is not only that sense of community and learning together, but it's also learning from the diverse experiences, as this group can be quite international, quite diverse in terms of schools of thought, of backgrounds, of different types
Yeah,
of coaching.
yeah, that was it. I mean, there were coaches from all kinds of coaching backgrounds. There were there were the executive coaches, which I was developing as. I mean, I was working a lot in the kind of health and well-being coaching areas, but was developing as an executive coach, working with NHS clients and leaders in those areas. So that was something that was new, and I'd done a little bit of training around building confidence around working with people that were quite senior, which was quite a jump actually, that shouldn't be underestimated actually. But I was training alongside people that had a lot of experience in those areas. There were people that were doing coaching in this might not be absolutely accurate, but they were in like a sort of a more charity sector. And there was some, doing coaching with young people. There was somebody, I saw their journey as a coaching psychologist, and they became a chartered psychologist after their supervision journey. But it was really interesting to see the different types of coaches. Just when you think there's just one coach, there's one type. No, and it was like there in front of me. And I was coming at it from with a real therapeutic head. I can't take my therapeutic head off. It's there. So my blend of that work, and because I'd come from a transactional analysis background as well, I really enjoyed that part of the learning. Probably to the detriment of some other parts. When I look back, I wish I'd really put more focus into the areas that I didn't know. But that's just the learning experience, isn't it? Actually, I kind of was comfortable with the things that I already sort of knew a bit about, and I should have challenged myself more. But that doesn't mean that I can't go back and look back over the things and relearn. And I think, I mean, a lot of us have a thirst for learning anyway, but when you sign up to doing specific training that will then help you develop, you're kind of in it. You're in this lifelong learning loop, aren't you? So, yeah.
Especially coaches.
Yeah.
I think this is a trait we have of this learning never ends, the journey.
Mm,
David, thank you so much for sharing, because I'm sure it will be very useful for our listeners to really reflect on which parts of the learning potentially you have an unconscious
mm,
focus on, maybe the ones that you feel more comfortable or are more familiar to you. And
mm,
just that it's a bit of a reminder
mm,
to intentionally monitor, this learning process. Is it focusing a bit more on certain parts, or is it equal? Or
mm.
I think that's a great reminder. David, what do you enjoy about being a coaching supervisor?
I think what's happened for me is I'm prepared to see if I can work with anybody. Like, so I'm really open to working with anybody, and it's whether they kind of like my approach or. But there is something about I tend to work with people that are straddling the coaching and the therapeutic worlds. So I work with a lot of coaches who are also therapeutically trained,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or I work with coaches that have a real interest, and they work predominantly in the health and well-being areas of coaching. So that tends to be the kind of coach that comes for supervision and to work with me. Tends to be that kind of coach. So I won't necessarily be the supervisor for everybody. And I'm not quite sure what that would mean. I couldn't say, well, if you want this, I'm not the person for you, because actually I don't know what that would be. But I know that people that sometimes am I coaching? Am I giving therapy? That question is a really good question that I can help people explore with, because I have the same question.
Yeah.
What am I doing right now? Am I coaching? Am I therapy? Am I a combination? Am I integrating the two? So actually, I like to be able to use my experience as a real positive sounding board for people. And often, when I first started coaching supervision, I was really developing as a trauma therapist, and there was a lot of work in the coaching world around trauma-informed coaching. So people who are interested in working in those sort of areas, I seem to attract those types of coaches, which was good because it's my area that I'm really interested in. So I seem to be working in those areas. I mean, I do some supervision. I do a group occasionally, and they tend to be don't know how to describe. They're executive coaches that don't touch anything therapeutic. They are pure executive coaches. To be honest, I don't do an awful lot of that. It is more around people that work in health and well-being, or I work with people who coach with younger people, because I feel I've done some training in children's therapeutic approaches. So I will often get people who are coaching maybe in schools who will come to me for supervision, and they'll tend to do it on a frequency more akin to clinical supervision, that might be monthly or even fortnightly, rather than maybe once every 3 months or once every 2 months, like that. So I have a range of supervisees, but I like working in that mental health area. I guess it's what I'm interested in.
Mm. That's great because it really shows the broad range of clients that you can work with, and in your case you seem to be attracting the type of coaches who are maybe resonate with your background and
Mm,
are really drawn to your expertise and your background.
mm,
Um, what is the how would you say that the coaching supervision training um, impacted you as a person, as a coach, as a supervisor?
mm. I mean, it was interesting because I'd been in supervision for quite some time, and then went behind the scenes and learnt some of the models of supervision that my supervisors were using, and it's like, that's interesting. So it was really good to learn about some of the models, because actually it's helped me supervise myself. I'm thinking, what is it that I need if I'm thinking about functions of supervision as a model itself. I'm using that. I like the seven-eyed model, and I'm using it in my work as a coach. I'm thinking, what eye am I using now? So I'm not even just, and I think we can do that as supervisors. We can encourage our supervisees to think like that as well. So not just in supervision, but when they're back with their clients, that's how do you take what you're reflecting on in supervision back into the work, in that, and reflexively I'm doing this and I'm leaning into what I've learned, and I love that process, because I'm doing that, and the more I get involved with this supervision world, and it's interesting because there doesn't seem to be an awful lot of resources and things out there for supervisors.
Mm.
It's everything is aimed at coaches, or everything's aimed at therapists. But even in the clinical world, I went to a supervisors event earlier this year, and it was like trying to find a supervisors event was really, it was quite difficult. Maybe I'm just looking in the wrong places, I'm not sure. But that's what I like about the ICCS, because you know I went to one of Nick Bolton's workshops yesterday, actually, you know, for supervisors. Um, and it's great that actually there's an investment back into us as the supervisors from the ICCS, you know, and it's great to feel like someone's investing in us, you know, that they're interested in the work and they're interested in supervision as a whole. So trying to find those sorts of, you know, resources, I find it scarce, but it, I now know where they are. So you know, I use those resources to help me, um, not just as a supervisor, but as a coaching practitioner as well. Yeah.
And David, this what you shared leads me very nicely to the next question, which is what qualities do you feel are essential maybe to uh, effective supervision?
Hmm. Um, for me, I like to think that I'm open,
Mm,
I'm open-minded, and I can build a relationship. You know, so um, my I have four supervisors because of the different areas of how I work. And I build a relationship with those people and I see them on a fairly regular basis. So we build a relationship over time. Um, and so I know that I can lean in, I can lean into people when I need that extra support. And I know them quite well enough now to lean into them when they're not with me. I kind of think, what would they think? What would so and so say? How would they support me? What would they ask me? And so I'm really leaning into my supervision world in a way. And because you know, you go and do a supervision training course, you suddenly know like 15 supervisors at least, you know, and then you go to, you know, I go to, I try to go to the ICCS supervision of supervision group. And there you know a load of more supervisors. So suddenly your world of supervision opens up and you know a lot of supervisors and there's a lot of people to share experiences with and to pick their brains and how would you deal with this? How would, you know, and it just opens up a world to, I don't ever want to forget that for me, it's the client at the end of the day, it's the coachee at the end of the day that's really important in all of this, because if it wasn't for the coachee, we wouldn't be here. You know, it's
mhm.
about in service of the coachee. So yeah, that's I love the growing community that I'm in actually, and it supports me in right across my work. You know, really. Yeah.
And David, what would you share with maybe coaches who are also therapists, who are considering training, or psychotherapists who are considering training as coach supervisors?
Mm. Um, I would say do it. I said if there's something niggling there to sort of do it, have a look, have a go. It it really helped enhance my my understanding of coaching actually. So it kind of helped me as a coach, not just as a supervisor. Um, I yeah, I found the I mean I found a real interest. So I always knew I was interested in ethics, but now I really know that I'm really interested in ethics. So I found a sort of an area that I'm super interested in that's really um, you know, lit something in my professional life. Um, and I think I think if you're working across modalities as well, you know, I think it is. I think it's useful for us to get the most out of our supervision, so we can really understand where we are, where we're standing, what our perspective is. So to move into the supervision sphere can be really important as well, because it can really enhance that work that we do. Um, yeah, I'm not sure if that's answered your question, but that it certainly helped me, and I became a coaching supervisor first, and then after some time and experience, I moved to do a diploma in clinical supervision. So and I enjoyed both courses actually, but I do my experience of the ICCS course was really good. I really enjoyed it. I'm not just kind of saying that. Actually, it was a really, really good course. I got a lot out of it. And any other course that I've done since then, I've really compared it to. It was a really good thing to compare other things to. I got a lot from it, you know. Course. And it's coming back now. There were two models of supervision that I really kind of looked and enjoyed working with. And then just doing Nick's workshop yesterday, there was another model which he was talking about, and I thought, I remember doing this, and I don't use it a lot, but I really like this model, and so it really kind of just having that experience again really helped me tune into another model that I'm now thinking, I could really use that effectively for myself, but also for my supervisees, right across the board, the clinical work and the coaching work, because they're the same models, they're the same models. It's understanding how we work with other people, which I think is the important. That's the key thing for me. It's, there's a massive similarity in my supervising work. Yeah.
in both areas.
Mhm.
That's great to hear. I wasn't quite fully aware of the other side, the
Mhm.
clinical supervision. David, thank you so much for being here with me and sharing your journey. I'm sure a lot of listeners will benefit from it. Thank you, David.
Thank you.